Good morning, everyone, and good morning, Nicole and Goro from Empowered Liveability. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for
you.
having us again.
Now, we've got Lauren today who is on the road and having some issues with enough cell coverage to get a good picture. So her video is off today. But we've got a really, Empowered Livability Part 2 conversation that we've been threatening to have. We threatened to do this before Christmas, and then life, right? Work, end of year, I think we all just got smashed by that a bit. And now we're in March and we've finally managed to catch up to it. And we were just chatting off camera about some of the things we want to go over today because, man, there's a lot going on out there as always. And if I can just frame it for a second, just to sort of set the picture that there's been another one or two SDA providers in some strife out there. There's on the verge of collapse or collapsing or heading in that direction. There's been a lot of movement of owners and landlords seeking a new SDA provider home for a whole pile of different reasons, and which is fairly normal, but at the scale right now is fairly spectacular. And then there's a whole bunch of work that then spins off for SDA
Absolutely.
providers when someone says, "Can you look after my property?" And conversations to have, and all the processes that we need to go through in order to correctly and with compliance bring that property under our umbrellas to then take care of the participants and the landlord. Man, like, where do you want to start? Why don't we throw it over to Nicole and Goro? Lauren and I are in the weeds a bit at the moment as well. What's it like in Victoria with you guys?
I think we're the same. I feel like we're constantly in the weeds. Our team has grown so rapidly. The first couple of years we were able to kind of do, the three of us directors and, two or three staff. And now, we've got 18 in the office and two virtual assistants. And it's crazy. And we're still in the weeds. We're still, mostly hands on, right in there, shoulder to shoulder with our team constantly. I think one of the things we were just talking about off camera was around that we've had to build an actual team just for landlord onboarding because we're getting 20 to 30 requests a week from landlords who have built through spruikers or they've decided to go alone and do it themselves. The house is built, sometimes sitting there for 6 to 12 months, and then they'll come to us. And the reality is that if we're spending so much time on that, we're not filling any other houses. So we've had to create.
That's right. And that's the thing, because look, clearly, even if you were like a Ray White franchise in the burbs, 20 or 30 brand new properties a week, it's just not manageable. No one can bring on that many properties and do it properly and do it well. So how are you dealing with that volume, that inquiry?
So we've had to just create like a tier 1 and a tier 2 wait list, basically. Most of ours, we don't build or do sales internally. So Goro has another company, Ethical Property Investments, that does that for us. And, the way that we work normally is we identify where we have a need, we do the due diligence, we do the demand mapping, we go to Goro and say, can you find an investor to build this property in this location for us? That's the way we would love to work. 9 to 12 months of marketing. We already probably have people on a wait list waiting to go into those properties. At least, that's why we're going to Goro. But these
So your
20 to 30.
likelihood of a successful move-in is very, very high under that model.
Yeah, under that model, it's
Exactly. And things change. We know that we'll lose people. Unfortunately, people pass away.
Yep.
There's things that happen. So it's not always a perfect system, but it's the best system, that we've kind of over the last 9-10 years that we've been able to put together. But when we're getting 20 to 30 landlords coming to us a week who have built through other people's spruikers, they're in oversupplied areas that we're all talking about constantly. There's been no planning. The house is sitting there for 12 months and it's somehow we inherit a problem. So we'll sometimes take those properties on. If we already have a demand and we don't have a house, absolutely we will take a property on like that. Why wouldn't we? If it's a good quality, it's in the area, even if it is an oversaturated area, if we've got a demand, we'll take that house. The problem is then that landlord then demands that it's then fully straight away, which is impossible. Most of those properties we take on as Appendix H or single occupants or straight non-SDA. Like there's so many other justice participants, mental health participants There's so many other things that we've come up with to try and help fill some of those, some of that need, but it is impossible for us to focus on that and to actually fill the houses that we've done all the right things for, which is that lead time, that marketing time, working with providers, working with families. That's our bread and butter. That's what we have to focus on. And we can't do that with 20 to 30 people a week coming to us
There's no
wanting to
way.
be onboarded. So we've just had to create basically a tier 1 and a tier 2 wait list if it's a good location and there's it's the right type of build, it's a good quality build, it has fire sprinklers, it's in that tier 1 kind of bracket. Everything else is almost self-serve, kind of where we send the landlord a link and say put it on our wait list, and if we have need, if our team at least knows that there's these 50 houses sitting there that we could potentially look at if we have a demand, then we'll contact them from there. But we can't onboard them, we just can't.
Yeah, look, that makes so much sense. And look, just yesterday, I got a document set that I've been expecting for a landlord who's got a property out east of Brisbane, looking for a provider. And it's a 2-resident home in a 3-resident world, right? Because all of the top are coming out with supports at 3-to-1, and there's so many 2-to-1 houses out there. And I just said, look, this is the situation we're in. This is what you've got, and the quality of your home is not in any dispute. It's a fantastic quality home. The type of home, any notion you have about 180 grand for 2 HBS residents, you need to dispel that right now. That's just not on the table. And then in 6 to 12 months, we might be able to a single SDA resident with maybe another still, or maybe nothing, right? You need to sort of really reset expectations, and there's absolutely no guarantees. And if you choose then to accept what I'm saying, then we can take you on the understanding that that's what we're dealing with. It's a bitter pill for people
Yeah.
to sort of have to swallow. It's
And
challenging.
that brings David, that brings me back to the point that Nicole kind of mentioned, is I think there should be better practices in the industries where anyone selling SDA should do the right thing and introduce their client to an SDA provider from day dot, right? And there's costs associated with that and all of that sort of stuff by us as SDA providers. To give you an idea, something that was done, there was a property that was completed a little while ago. It was NDIS registered, last week or the week before? And I think this tenant's moving in there next week. That's a high quality, and there was consultation done from day dot in terms of where the build should be, what the build should look like. Is this room too small? Is this room too big? That's something that the SDA provider knows. People like David, yourself, Nicole, Lauren, we all know that, what it should be and where it should be built. That information hasn't flowed through to the landlord, and that's what causes 30 or 40 or however many landlords building out in the middle of nowhere that isn't really serving our industry.
No, we get inquiries for stuff in the outer suburbs of Victoria, and Nicole, I send them your way and listen.
Yeah.
What can you do? And you're like, not a lot. I'm like, I get it, but I've still got to try and help this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think part of what we deal with as SDA providers is, I think at a molecular level, these SDA providers, we're built to be really empathetic, and you can't be in the biz without having high levels of empathy. And the challenge for a lot of providers is then layering pragmatism on top of that, and learning how to say no. I just can't help. I'm sorry. If I help you, I'm no longer serving these other people made promises to, and I'm not
Yeah.
actually serving you. Like that's a hard thing to learn to do.
Yeah. And I think, for us, and we might be different to other SDA providers, we don't have any upfront charges until someone's physically moving into your home. So there's 9 to 12 months of work that we're doing literally for nothing until someone's moving in. And then to have, I guess, more and more builds in some of those same areas where when we've done our due diligence, the numbers looked good. But we're going off, not just, Housing Hub, we're going off NDIS, we're going off GoNest, we're going off,
Plus local knowledge as well.
yeah,
I mean,
local knowledge.
you've got more of an idea than honestly most SDA providers. A lot of SDA providers don't have a good development and real estate and commercial mind. They don't.
No.
And to find that with an SDA provider is really valuable. So to have that insight's really powerful too.
Yeah, or they only do. They only come from real estate development and understand.
That's
human
that's
Yeah,
such a good
services.
it's a
point.
spectrum, and
That's why we got together, is because we wanted to put our heads together to come up with something that we felt was, a valuable
Yeah.
service. But it's just we get diluted by default almost by, and in some cases we're trying to fill a house that we have done all the work, we've done everything to get it right. And in some cases, because the due diligence looked good at the start of the build or even the start of the finance process, by the time it's built, and then there's 10 others in the same location that other people have built, which is fine. That's the commercial reality of what we're doing. But the problem is, because our landlord, we've done all the work, they have that certain level of expectation of what we believed we could deliver 18 months ago when the process started. So they'll then be kind of rejecting tenants because, well, that's not what I was
Yeah.
expecting. And we say, well, we actually give you a guide. We don't give you any kind of guarantee. And that's fine. And some people can hold on to a property, but they don't realize even those people with, a 3-resident high fizz and the house is 2 res, those people will disappear in 6 months. They will be housed in other
Mate,
houses in
we've
the area. And then
I
there isn't
spoke
even, while they're
to
waiting for a unicorn, there isn't
yeah,
even any horses
we've had
left. You
so
know what I
many
mean? It's
landlords
just so
miss
hard.
out on great tenants because they're waiting for that, "Oh, no, I want more. I want a bit more, a bit more." I said,
Yeah.
"You really need to say yes to this person."
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, and we understand the commercial reality, and there's sometimes a bit of a mismatch between human services and, development and investment. I think we, from a human service point of view, have learnt a lot more about property investment development than the actual investors have learnt about disability or about, human services. I think that it's been much easier for us to learn the other side than it has been on the flip. And I think because of that, they're not kind of understanding this is a really, really tumultuous situation. We put one wrong person in and we will lose the other two potentially. So there's that just so much nuance that you can't even teach it. Like I don't think we could do every educational video on earth and it's
More art
still,
than
we
science.
wouldn't be able to,
we've
we just wouldn't be
tried.
able to
It
teach
just
it.
doesn't work.
Yeah.
Look, and this kind of segues into something else we were chatting about. In this environment, you've got a lot of properties that frankly shouldn't be there. A lot of landlords really struggling to understand why their property that they've put $1 million or $1.5 million into is vacant. Um, and there's people have overpromised left, right, and centre. SDA providers trying to manage as best they can, and all these competing priorities. There's like me, and then along comes someone from left that they don't know and says, "I can find you some participants, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. Let me support you." Right. And I think we're around the meetings that we've been having, we're calling these people third party referrers. Effectively, they're unregistered, unenrolled referral pathways for tenants to SDA providers. Are you guys seeing much of that happen around Victoria?
Yeah. There's lots. There's sort of, I guess, some that I would call almost marketing more than anything else. But again, it's still just dilute. We're still vying for the exact same people. And I think, something that we really hold dear, I guess, as Empowered Liveability is our longevity within STA, our pre-NDIS experience and knowledge. And I know you guys are the same, Lauren, as well. You can't buy that. Like you literally cannot buy that kind of trust, experience. You can't buy it. And I think we've been approached, several times over the years with similar kind of people or I guess you couldn't call them providers, but they're almost, businesses at least. And it's just never, I could just never really get over the moral dilemma of paying for a referral. And I don't know if it's come from all of my training experience has always been if you can't help someone, you refer them on. There's never a dollar figure attached. You just want to help. If you're in this sector, you want to help people. And I get people need to make a living and they're trying to come up with innovative ways of working. And I think there's ways and they have value in other directions that they could go in. And maybe it is just the marketing side of it and potentially having people sign up to them as a matching service or like Housing Hub do it amazingly from their perspective because that's how they were set up initially. It's almost people trying to not force their way in because I think they've had their foot in the door for a little bit, but I think it's their way of trying to add value, but they need to make a living at the same time. And I think we shouldn't necessarily lose sight of who we're working for and that if we can't help them, we shouldn't be on selling them. And we shouldn't be trying to, I guess, bring them in if we actually don't deliver the service. Like, I'm not going to go out and market and bring in support coordination participants and then sell them to support coordinators. We don't deliver support coordination, so why would we?
Yeah, no,
If you're not a provider,
that would be
so
really
if
weird.
you're not an SDA provider, why are you trying to get SDA participants? I get that there's lots of landlords out there, and most of the people that we've spoken to are bringing us landlords. They're not bringing us participants. So it's not really, I don't think it really works in reality anyway. And I think
what we're seeing is people, and I'm going to say something that's maybe a little bit controversial, and that is, I think there might be a place for third-party referrers who are referring tenants to SDA providers, and with some caveats, right? Because I'm one of these people in SDA whose pragmatism sometimes trumps their empathy, whereas others are the opposite. I think there's a place for it. It really depends on how they go about it, if they're heart-led or money-led, and the promises they're making. And it all comes, I think, from a position of real frustration out there with landlords due to a lack of understanding. The landlords are cross, understandably, justifiably, fairly. Why did I pay all this money? Why am I spending 10 grand a month in holding costs? It's not fair. And they're right. They're right. A bit like you, I'm sure. They come to us and we say, listen, we didn't create the situation you're in. We're going to try and help you. Let's go. And 90 days later, it's like, why haven't you? Because they forget that we didn't do it and we're doing the best we can. And all of a sudden, we're the bad guy because we haven't done blah, right? And then someone comes along and says, I can help you with that. And they latch onto it like someone getting thrown a life preserver who's drowning, honestly. And it's a bit like that. And they come out as hard, like, we need to do this now. So in that situation, it's a bit disingenuous for someone to say, I can help you where these guys haven't.
yeah,
Versus if you're in the biz and you've got some knowledge and you understand the process and you can actually join some dots for people and do it with some integrity, that's a whole different thing. And
absolutely.
that's kind of what I'm seeing out there. There's a couple of people who know little bits and pieces of the process, and they make promises that don't fit when you look at the whole thing in context. And then they come and want all this money from you or from the participant or from the family or whatever, and they're not adding value. In that light, I'm like, listen, I'm not, don't call us. I'm not interested.
Yeah. And I
I
think that,
do
I mean, the ones that
find
we've engaged with, sorry, you go, Lauren.
sorry, I know you can't see me. I think what I've been experiencing is that their agencies or these third-party referrals that I've seen, they're out there trying to do more marketing to generate more inquiry for properties, which is essentially what your SDA provider should be doing as well.
It's
But
saying
what
perfectly, isn't it, Nicole?
but what they're then doing is forwarding through inquiry. And look, we haven't worked with any of them. I'm just seeing how the process would work and packed it with a couple to explore it. But what we're seeing then is that you'd get an increase in inquiry that's not qualified, that hasn't been explored properly by somebody who really understands what needs to be assessed. And there's high expectations set with the owner then that then do fall back on the SDA provider. Now, if the marketer is out there collecting
We're just losing you
an
there,
amount of
Lozzie. But I think we
are
get your
you?
point. We've lost you.
Yeah.
Goro, what do
Oh,
you
okay.
reckon, mate? Like, how do you've been a bit quiet over there on this one?
Yeah, I'm trying to process it all. I'm kind of halfway in between all points here, and Lauren probably resonated with where I stand the most. If you're basically going to rehash what the SDA providers are doing anyway, why bother? And this is what a good SDA provider should be doing. They should have their marketing team. They should have their BD team. They should have their pounding the pavement team, right? That's what we get paid a higher premium for than a real estate agent, effectively, right? And which I'm sure we'll cover later. But that's effectively the SDA provider's role. My one worry with the third-party providers doing glorified Facebook ads, for lack of a better term, is, sorry, I'll call it as it is, hope you don't mind, is that it dilutes our offering out there. And so unless they've got, for example, if they've got a link in with a hospital or some other avenue that's not online, great. There's a space for that. If you're just going to do a Facebook rehash post, what's the point?
Yeah. I think my thing is I would rather almost hire someone, even as a contractor, to go and do that for us as an organization. But the part that morally sits badly with me is if someone's doing it off their own back, which is fine. Everyone's, we're in a free country. You can go and set up whatever kind of business you want to try and, earn a crust. I have no issue with that. But if you're shopping around a tenant, a participant, an actual NDIS participant, a person with a disability, and you're shopping them around to the highest bidder, and I'm not saying that's what they're all doing, but if you're shopping them around to the highest bidder and not actually trying to find the best solution for that person, that is where I can't get on board.
I think we're all aligned on that
Yeah.
one. I think we all
Yeah,
agree
that's my
there.
line. Absolutely. I think I
Yeah.
would rather just hire someone, hire a marketing agency, hire, to bring in more leads, all the stuff, which is all the stuff we've all tried. We've all done that over the last 10 years. It's not like we're all just sitting here waiting for people to come to us. That's not.
Wait for the thunder. And yeah, look, we're all at events. We all sponsor things. We all do
Yeah.
social media. We're all ringing people. We're all doing mail outs. We're all doing all the things, online marketing, offline marketing, radio. Like we're all doing the things, right? And for
Yeah.
someone to come in and think they can suddenly reinvent the wheel and do it different because I'm, I don't know, independent or somehow, we're talking to the same people and to a cohort of people who need probably less confusion, not more confusion. So it's for everyone
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
And shopping
that
people around, that's disgusting.
Yeah,
Personally,
I didn't
find-
realize it was happening like that, actually. I thought it was more of a marketing fee up front, not a paid on placement fee. That's a very different vibe to it, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think they're all different. I think we've had probably 10 different types come to us. It's not a
Right.
hard and fast, and I would, there is already specific organizations like Housing Hub, and I love Housing Hub. They've been in this with all of us since the beginning.
Yep.
To do all of that are independent, that aren't just going to the highest bidder or aren't just giving referrals to providers who are paying for extra ads on the system. I think it's more a cultural issue of potentially people and the support coordinators, it's families, it's participants themselves, just doing a Facebook post in a group asking for housing or asking for supports, and 100 providers jump on. And, and we're all one of we all jump on and go, yep, I've got something in that area, or I don't, here's this provider who does. But people are saying yes, absolutely, I can do that. And they don't know the location. They know nothing about the participant. Yes, you can say you have a house in a location. That's pretty easy for us as SDA providers. Yes, there's a bricks and mortar actual physical house in that location. But that's pretty much all you can say until you know more. So I don't know how your providers are saying, yes, I can provide this support. And I think that's
just
where
love the
these
ones.
third parties, I think that's what they're capitalizing on. They're capitalizing on that. They're capitalizing on, yes, I can help you. Let me find you the right house. Let me find you the right provider. As if
Sort of
that's
like a buyer's agent, isn't it? Or a
yeah,
rental
kind
agent.
of, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think if it was done well with good practice behind it, potentially could be really good. But I think it's just that there's not a lot of practice behind it. There's not a lot of code of conduct. There's
There's not.
nothing. And I think,
Also, some of them don't have the understanding. And there's something again we were discussing. If they're shopping someone around trying to find a provider that the landlord or the tenant or whoever's asking for, if they're shopping a landlord for an SDA provider, they're going to try and get the best terms for the landlord. Oh, what are your commissions? What are you charging? No, what are your fees? What are this? Oh, do better.
yeah.
Mate, how many SDA providers have we seen go to the wall now in the last few years? And all of them have been charging, the rates are too cheap, that they can't pay their bills. And then sneaky things start to happen, like instead of paying SDA and rent to the landlords, they're paying wages because they're not getting enough commissions through. And so
What did you say before, Dave? Cheap is expensive.
it's expensive.
Yes.
Everyone's heard that you get what you pay for. And SDA is no different. If you're shopping for an SDA provider based on price and you're trying to get the cheapest deal you can, good luck. I don't want to work with you, honestly. And truly, enjoy. I hope you have a successful project somewhere. I really do. But if all you care about is cheap, I can't work with you.
Pay
If you
peanuts,
want
get monkeys, right?
relationship, we can talk.
Yeah.
So, Goro?
Pay peanuts, get monkeys.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Or how many
Yeah.
times have we had people saying, you're too expensive, I want 7.5% or 10%. And we say for the work that we do, we feel like we are, other people may not think we are, we feel like we're a premium service for what we provide. We could not do it for 10%. We
No.
couldn't.
I don't think you can. I think it's possible.
Yeah. Where we can is with owner builders who are owning their own home. So someone with a disability owning their own home, we cap that 10%. 100%. We don't
Yeah.
need to do any matching. We still need to be part of our audit. We still need to make sure you've got all of your maintenance requests still come through us. But that's where we can do that kind of rate for someone, especially if it's in an already oversaturated area. I want to charge them 80% if I could. If you give me another house in an area with 40 other houses in the same street, like
I
Yeah.
get it.
there's
No,
no
look, you're right.
reality.
We were having this chat last week, and I think that we charge 12%. DHS charges a flat 12%, and I think for some of the properties that's way too cheap, and for
I was
some,
going to say, Dave, that's way too cheap for
Yeah.
you. What you guys do.
and I think for some we can maybe wind it back. Like for a single res HPS apartment that's just not noisy, we can probably charge a bit less, right? So we're looking at reviewing some of that, and I think some houses are probably going to need to go to 15%. And we might do 12% where there's more than
I
one
actually still think that's too
property.
cheap, David.
Yeah.
If I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here, well, we're talking about numbers. Takes us roughly 10x the amount of staff as a real estate agent, and we're not charging 70% management because that's typically, what is it? Like, you're paying between 5 and 10% management fee. So to a normal real estate agent, we're not charging 70% management, right? 10x the amount of staff means we have 10x the amount of overheads and costs, right?
That's
So
right.
I still think at 15%, especially for the outerlying areas, that might be too cheap. Like, if you're dealing with Caboolture, like, I'll use an example, or Melton is a Melbourne example, right? We've got to charge more for that because it takes us as an SDA provider probably about 5 to 7 times more, or even more, worth of marketing in those areas than it does in an infill area.
Yeah, agreed. We do sort of tier our marketing depending on the statistics in the area at the time. And look, sometimes during that vacancy period, the statistics change drastically and we lose, and sometimes we win, like we get it done quicker, or sometimes it drags out. And that's a risk we have to take. But you're right, depending on the property location and the property type, makes a huge impact on the viability of each property. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And we've got a
also,
tiered system internally as well.
you mentioned earlier, guys, that you pay on success and completion. We do levy fees up front for the enrolment and tenancy matching and marketing services. That's how we've sort of kept a bit of downward pressure on our commission rates, because we charge up front for the services. And then, like Lauren says, sometimes, look, I don't think there's any money in tenancy matching and marketing. There's the amount of, as we've all just been saying,
lose
look,
money.
the amount of work involved, where we've got all the overheads and the staff and the travel and the yada yada. So it's really just cost offsetting. That's the best you hope for with the tenancy matching fees.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I perhaps direct us to something that's been on my mind of late? And I think it just acknowledges the shift in the market in the last 12 months has really gone from a whole lot of new investors in the market coming on the books to existing investors coming on the books. So these are people that have been in the market, possibly been with another provider, and it hasn't worked out, or for whatever reason they're looking for a change. And so, I think the cost model for that as an SDA provider is really quite different. If we're looking at bringing on a property that's already got one tenant in it and perhaps has one vacancy, there's a lot of upfront work that has to happen in order to get that income flowing through for that owner. And I think you guys have been in a similar position in you're footing that bill for the first 3 to 6 months to get that property bringing income in for the owner and for yourselves. But I don't think property owners are aware of the amount of resources that go into onboarding a new property, enrolling it, onboarding a tenant if there's one in place, and then marketing the vacancy if there is one as well. But that's a lot of man hours to get all of those things ticked off and working for a provider. So the industry's changed from these new properties coming on board and charging those upfront fees to be able to do the work, to now going, okay, well, you've already got a tenant, but we've still got to do a whole bunch of work to get this working. As an industry, that shift is having a big impact on all of us, I think. And it's something that, I think owners need to understand is there's still so much work to do in order to rectify what wasn't working for, to fill that vacancy that they've been holding for so long.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've seen such a, and you guys have been around similar time to us, this last 9-10 years, we've seen so many changes. Like our first lot of houses, we'd have 15 to 20 applicants per house. So the
Mm.
matching, a lot of those people still live together because the matching was so much easier because,
Yeah.
again, you're matching 15 to 20 people to get 2 or 3 to live together. It was amazing. And then we've gone to now where there's, again, free market, there's lots of providers, there's lots of housing. You absolutely pounding the pavement, and people don't see the radio ads, the newspaper ads. They just see you've posted on Facebook and think that's all you've done, or it's just on
Yeah.
Housing Hub, or it's just on GoNest. And I think that's where these third parties are almost exploiting that a little bit because
Yeah.
they equate the fact that there is vacancy in your home to the fact that there's been no work done for it. Whereas I think
Yes.
that's where, us, I guess, putting our money where our mouth is, and again, from experience, from, longevity, from trust in the market, is that
Mm.
that's why we haven't put those upfront costs. That's purely on success for us. Once someone's moving in, there's an onboarding fee, but there's
Yeah.
no payment upfront until that, which means all of our marketing is continuous for every
Mm. Mm.
location. It's for the house
Mm.
that's out in the sticks that, has been sitting empty, and it's the premium house that's, got so much action that you're fighting off people for it. All of that
Yeah.
has the same amount of marketing. So for people to say that you're not doing enough, it's a kick in the guts, essentially, because you know how much, we might spend 40 grand a year just on radio. We might spend, money on different types of news, print, all of the disability, magazines, all of that stuff on top of all of your Housing Hub, GoNest, NDIS provider
Yeah.
finder, all of those
That's
things,
it.
posting on socials, trying to show different types of, it's not just here's a house, here's a house, here's a house.
And the
Yeah.
staff time it costs to do all that as well.
Exactly. There's
There's
marketing
3 or
teams
4 people.
internally, externally, graphic
Yeah.
designers, all of those things.
What you've just described is what I'm hearing is $400,000 or $500,000 in staff costs to do all that,
Yeah,
plus the cost of the service.
exactly. Exactly. There's literally no way, and I've heard other providers are starting with just some VAs. Great. They can charge 7 or 8, maybe 10%. That's
You can do
fantastic,
that
but
with
they're
about
not
10
going to be able to
properties because you can
scale.
kind
They're
of
not going to be
juggle
able to
your
scale.
brain easily.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to
Yeah,
scale,
I
and they're
mean, we just
probably.
saw another SDA provider up for sale yesterday, didn't we, Nicole?
Yeah,
Oh,
well, there
really?
was one up for sale on Facebook, which at least seemed to have a rent roll other than, what we're seeing now where give me 50,000 for my own provider, then I haven't done anything and it's an empty company.
Yeah.
This one actually had
Yeah.
at least some revenue and some potential rent roll. But yeah, like I just think those providers, again, they're going in it, I think, a lot of the time for the right reasons, but they're not going to
Mm.
be able to scale at that point, which means they're diluting what the rest of us are doing, which again, free market, go nuts.
Mm. Mm.
But we can't do those kind of numbers and we can't keep up with the sector without significant investment into marketing, advertising, social
Yeah, and look,
media,
Yeah.
honestly,
all of
if
the
you're
stuff.
a tenant or a landlord, you really want a provider who knows what they're doing. It's great. It sounds great if you're a landlord. I'll just find a little boutique, someone to organise, help me out for like 8%. I'll get personalised care. Maybe you might, and they might do a really good job. But the first time they have to go through an audit, they're not ready because they don't know what that process is. And if something happens and you've got to go to VCAT or QCAT, they're not ready for that because it'd be like you cheap is expensive and you get what you pay for. It's
No,
really if you've gone to the risk and the expense and the effort of spending $1.5 million on a property in a good area and you've got great tenants. I mean, look, I own commercial property and I'm telling you, you want it managed by someone who's competent and just pay the money. You just got to pay the fee and have it done well.
yeah.
Mm.
And I think
Makes a huge
the hardest
difference.
pill to swallow is being called incompetent because you cannot find anyone to even be interested in a house that's been built with 40 others in the same street,
Yeah.
being called incompetent for that when you're just trying to help. Your problem, or
It's
your
pretty
lack
rough.
of planning, it shouldn't be our problem. Like that's something that I
Yeah.
think we really need to hammer home to some of the landlords that are just coming to us again, the 20, 30 a week. Your lack of planning isn't our problem. We're trying to be here to help you because we are responsible for the entire sector, not just your
Mm.
house. Like we have a
Mm.
responsibility to everyone. And I know, there's some pockets of the sector that think it should just all be institutional investment, that institutional investment is still mum and dad investors that have all pulled their money into that investment fund to still
That's
build
right.
the product. It's not.
That's a
Yeah.
whole nother episode,
That
Nicole.
is a
If
whole
we-
other,
Yeah.
definite whole other
my-
episode.
Geez, we'd ruffle a few feathers on that
Just-
one.
I
Yeah,
just got
yeah.
irritable right away, like, because I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'd love to do an episode on it. But look, hey,
Yeah.
it's already almost 40 minutes, and we've covered some ground.
Yeah,
We
I think
have.
we
Feels like
already
we
did
barely
2.
scratched the surface.
I think last time we ended up having 2 episodes out of
we
one
did. We chopped it in
catch
half.
up.
and
So
then
this is
we
part 3, I think.
we can talk for another 5 minutes, and I can chop it in half, or we can call it and do it one episode. So there is, look, we have covered a lot of ground, and I think if we go too much further afield with more topics, I think we might get a bit lost in all the conversation. But we've covered a lot, and I think that the third party providers to start there. I think there is a place with caveats. If you're shopping participants to the highest bidder, then I wish nothing but 1,000 boils upon you, right? But if you're sort of saying to participants, let me try and find you a provider, maybe that's a whole different thing. Or you're saying to, there's ways to do it. Then we talked about the work that comes if your SDA provider's gone down, or you're not happy with your SDA provider, and you knock on one of our doors and we go, look, we can support you. And there's a lot of work that comes with that. And just to get real about timelines and expectations and re-enrollment with the agency on a provider switch or a re-enrollment, and then having participants go through the onboarding process to have your first claim, because that's a process. It can take a couple of months. And then we've talked about the costs of SDA providerships, and the costs of maybe boutique versus established, and horses for courses, right? But I think we're all kind of saying that you get what you pay for, and you really want someone who's been around and who's been through a couple of cycles, and who can represent you at VCAT, QCAT, who can handle support coordinators with some authority and pushback and understanding. Like, you want that experience. And all the marketing and the costs of that. So that's a lot we've talked about. Have I missed anything?
That's a
about
pretty
it, I
good
think.
summary.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a bunch. I'm still a bit like, man, what just happened? That we just kept going, and
We blinked.
I feel like there's a lot that we just wanted to get off our chest and go rah, because it's been such a. I feel like since about the 1st of January, my ears have been pinned back like this, and it's just been light speed. The world coming at us with everything that's happening.
Yeah. I
There you
think
go.
I was actually started to write an article, which I haven't finished yet, but it's basically how the SDA providers are the meet in the middle. We've got to kind of keep everyone together. We've got participants, we've got SIL providers, we've got investors, we've got families, we've got support coordinators, OTs, every kit and caboodle coming at us. And I feel like at times we're just in the middle, trying to really balance everyone, manage expectations, and we're still the ones, unfortunately, copping it.
What's your Monday.com CRM? How big is your relationship board? Ours is, there's thousands of people on our contacts board. Like, there's so many stakeholders in our universe. It's wild.
Yeah, exactly. I think our team said for most participants, obviously it's different for everybody, but for most participants, there's 5 to 10 stakeholders involved,
Easy.
Yeah.
for every
Ours
single
is 50
participant.
more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
And to
crazy.
manage that. And some of those stakeholders are also then involved in other participants. And then, it's so
Yeah.
much work that's very, very underestimated, and you just fill in a room. I don't get what the problem is. That's just the most basic, unrealistic part of the equation that you could possibly
Man,
put
what
out
do we
there.
even call this episode? What do we do? SDA provider
SDA provided therapy.
therapy. Yeah, that's
It
right.
does feel a little cathartic discussing these things with other people that
It
get it.
does.
So thank you. I
I
really
like it.
appreciate both of
does.
you, or all
SDA
of you.
provider therapy.
Yeah, it is a therapy session
That's great. I think we should wrap it up, guys. I think we can still do this in one push. So
in one go.
I'll tie it off,
Yeah.
and Loz, you've been in and out a bit, and I'll take care of that
Yeah,
on
thank
later.
you.
Okay. But hey, Nicole, Goro, as always, what a pleasure. It really does feel a little bit sort of like, oh my God, someone understands it. It's nice
Yeah.
to hear that the struggles that we're going through and managing, and the noise that we're managing, and the support we're trying to provide for people. Sometimes it can be a bit lonely, I think, as a provider,
Absolutely.
even though
Yeah.
there's people all around you. But are we on the right track? Is it the right thing?
Mm.
Yeah.
I've got some points from today's chat that I'm going to take away and think about. And it's just nice to hear someone having the same struggles, and I feel like we're all on the same path, heading in the same direction. It's a bit comforting at the same time. So thanks for the
Yeah, I
chat.
think so for sure. I think we all get stuck in the mud a little bit and like, in the weeds, like you said before, David. But I think, we're all, sometimes it's with a little straw that we're trying to breathe through while we're really in the mud. But, I think the more that we talk to each other and the more transparent we are with each other. And I think that's what, there is a group of us. Obviously, there's the SDA Alliance as well, which is amazing. But there is a group of us who don't necessarily fit into that specific group. And I think we've kind of formed our own group of trusted providers that actually will bounce this stuff off each other. We'll text each other to say, hey, what tech software stuff are you guys using? Hey, what do you think about this? What award are you using? Are you using real estate for your staffing, or are you using community services? We need to have those discussions, I think. And I think maybe it's like a Knights of the Round Table type system that we kind of have, where we all come together and we're all trying to solve the entire, world's problems. But I think without that, we're just in a little
It's a bit more
silo.
like the Monty Python version right now, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Guys,
Awesome.
again, thank you. Let's do it
It's a
again
pleasure.
and again and again, but that'll do it for now. Good on you. Cheers, everyone.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks, Dave.